looking better now. We'll see. Yes. Well, we are here today on Comic Spot, everybody. If you're here, I don't see the little chats until afterwards. So chat away and Mark and I will get back to you after the fact. This is Linda Marcus Smith, your host on Comic Spot. Comic Spot was created for you guys, so you can get to know comedians, legends, people who have sacrificed everything, many times lived in their car just to make you laugh. You're welcome. You get to know them off stage, behind their masks. And I'm not even talking about the pandemic. Yeah, we're going to unveil things, but we're not going for something that they don't want to talk about. That's not what I'm about. We're just going to get to know them so you can say, hey, you know that guy Mark Riccadonna that was on Linda Smith's podcast that nobody knows about? Yeah, he was cool. So much for the podcast. Anything's fine. You know, you can take my fans, steal them, have them for your own. Who cares? I'm happy with that. So if you're at home, don't tell me if you don't have your clothes on. Don't want to know. All right. The military had don't ask, don't tell. And they gave it up and gave it to me. I don't want to know what you're doing over there. Just kick back, have fun, get to know Mark Riccadonna today. I have one sponsor who's got my back, and that's the veteransofcomedy.com. Yeah, anytime you want to pick on somebody who served our country to serve up jokes, get a hold of Will Clifton. The veteransofcomedy.com is where you find all of the videos of all of the comics that are there doing comedy with the veteransofcomedy.com. Do it, folks. Do him a favor, do us a favor. I'm on there too. I served in the Army, which brings me to my guest.
Well, thank you for your service, Linda.
Thank you. I was mostly just in Germany yodeling in the Alps, but thank you for saying
That's still a job that needed done, and you did it.
I did it. Lederhosen, Edelweiss, and everything.
So that's why the guys want to tell you they don't have their clothes on. They're picturing you in lederhosen.
Oh my gosh. Today's guest, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Anytime anybody has gone and done comedy for the troops, they are so close to my heart. They can come in my house and take everything I have. That's how much I love them. And we have one of those comedy legends here today. Now I'm going to read you his intro, and I asked him for something braggy. So here we go. I asked for it. So it's let's see. He's a comic who tours regularly. A little word like regularly, really, Linda? He's a comic who tours regularly with the USO and Armed Forces Entertainment. Can we stop right there? Can we just?
That's my favorite credit. That's the one that means the most to me. You do anything else in this business, and that's awesome. But to me, doing that was something that I wanted to do because my father and father-in-law are veterans of Vietnam, and they talk about when people would come over. And my father-in-law was a Marine, so unfortunately, he never got to go to the shows. He was protecting the shows. But my father was Air Force, and he would talk about, they would have these shows that they stopped in the Philippines before they went into Vietnam. And it meant so much to me. And funny enough, how I even got involved in doing it was I was at a comedy festival, New York Comedy Festival, and a representative from Armed Forces Entertainment was there. And she approached me and said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And my friend Carol Montgomery was putting it all together. So I was like, yes, I'm in, and I'll do whatever. And she goes, okay, you're volunteering to come. It's a volunteered position. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. It doesn't matter. I'll do whatever. I would pay to do it. And then she left. I went home. And on the subway ride home, I had a thought come into my head because they also told me your first trip would be to Afghanistan or Iraq. They don't send you on the easy ones first. And on the ride home, I started to get nervous. And it wasn't for what probably people think it is. I wasn't nervous about going there and doing it. I was afraid I couldn't afford the ticket to fly there, because when I heard the word volunteer, I thought, well, you pay for your own travel, you pay for your own, everything. So I was a broke comic, young, I was in my 20s and broke, and I wasn't married yet, and I didn't know what to do. So when the lady called me back to start setting up everything, I asked if they had a loan program to loan money. And she goes, why would you need to loan money? And I go, I can't afford a plane ticket to Baghdad. I went online. They're a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you don't go to Baghdad, you go to Kuwait, because Baghdad was kind of occupied. And she was like, no, we fly you over. I was like, oh, then I'm in. This is great. I was so afraid I was going to miss the opportunity because I didn't have enough money to buy the plane ticket.
Oh, wow. So how many tours have you done, or how many bases, or how do you count it?
So with Armed Forces Entertainment, I was lucky enough. I've done 22, which is like, it's so all over the place, because there's like, you go to Iraq, you go to the Middle East, you go to Kosovo, you do the ones that are what you picture, the ones that you're like, yeah, this is what it is. You're going to wear a bulletproof vest, a helmet, and you're doing the whole thing. But then once in a while, they send you on these ones that are like the South Pacific, and you're on these islands that you're like, I can't believe I'm here. Like, this is where Godzilla comes from. The Bikini Islands out in the Marshallese Islands and all that. And they send you to Central America, Europe. I was probably at the base you were yodeling at. Um, we did like all over Northern Europe, and then I did one where it was like Spain and Portugal, and I'm like, these people don't really need comedy. They're living in paradise. This is amazing. But anywhere, as my friend Spanky would say, anywhere the flag flies, I'll go.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. So is your dad and grandfather still alive? Are they?
My father is, and my father-in-law are.
Father-in-law.
Yeah, and they, in fact, my kid's school. This is so cool because I feel like there's a lot of civic pride missing in society now. Like, we don't have as much civic pride as I feel like we did when I was younger.
Yes.
And the principal at my kids' their grade school, their kindergarten and second grade, um, did a really big deal about all the kids who have parents and grandparents who are veterans, and made a whole video and showing. I saw my dad's Vietnam picture and my father-in-law's his Vietnam picture, and it was and it said underneath, like, grandfather of, and it was and they had the fifth graders do a whole thing about the Pledge of Allegiance and how important it is, and they recite it, and it was really cool. And
That's so awesome.
I feel like we need more of that.
True.
Maybe a lot of these problems that we're having, dividing up country, maybe they would start to go away, and people would realize how ridiculous we are fighting over dumb stuff when there's a common ground. And I can't picture anybody that would, the old Bill Hicks joke, he would say like, I have a weird stance on the military. I'm for the war and against the troops. Like, nobody says that, like, it's just a joke. but it's like everybody's for the troops. Everybody loves and has some kind of you look up to them. You see somebody in a uniform, and your heart grows, and you have pride. And I feel like it's something I want my kids to take in, and I hope other people do too, because it brings us together.
It does. We'd be nothing without the military, and when I was in 73 to 76 over in Hanau, Germany, there was nobody that came to entertain the whole 3 years I was in. Nobody.
Wow,
And
man.
and so when I hear of Bob, Bob Hope was my idol growing up, and I grew up in a very anti-military house.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, my dad was a Holocaust survivor, and for some crazy reason, he was anti. When I joined the military, he backhanded me across the face.
Wow. I guess though, he saw the horrible, ugly side of war and didn't want you to be involved in it. And I understand that. And I feel like a lot of, like my generation's parents were in Vietnam, and they saw an ugly side of war, and they want to protect.
Yes.
They want to protect their kids, and they want to protect so I understand it, but I also have a deep respect for because people like you served, we have the right to not serve, and you don't have to join the military, because we have a military class that is so that powerful and protective and brave and all the good adjectives.
Yes. So to your father and your father-in-law who served, I want to stop and thank them for their service. And thank you for serving up jokes to the service. Oh my gosh, that's such a near and dear thing to me. Now you're an actor, director, and producer, and you live over on the East Coast. Am I right?
Yes.
In New
Yeah.
York?
Well, I moved out of New York when we had kids because I didn't want to do it in New York. So I live out in the burbs now.
So whereabouts roughly, like, do you live?
Right in between New York and Philly.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a nice little sleepy town called Ambler. And it's beautiful. It's like a walkable town. It reminds me of Queens, which is where I lived most of my life. And there's a movie theater and two regular theaters where you can go see live performances, all like a 3-minute walk for me and my kids. And there's like 4 spots where they do comedy. It's like this little town with all this art, and there's a ton of music, and I can't believe it took me so long to move.
that's awesome. What ages are your children, Mark?
5 and 7. Actually, they're gonna be 6 and 7 in another week.
So is a boy and a girl?
2 boys.
2 boys.
And their names are named after their great grandparents. So it'd be mine and my wife's grandparents. Their name is Duke and Axel.
Love
2
it.
very manly names.
Very. Oh my gosh. So growing up, let's go in a DeLorean in a time machine and go back to when you were little Mark Riccadonna in school.
I was never little. I was just young.
When you were in grade school, tell me what you were like and what people said to you and about you.
It's funny. I really think I have a different point of view on how I got to where I'm at now, going in the entertainment business. I was really quiet and shy as a kid. A young Mark, a grade school Mark, was probably drawing or reading or sitting by himself with not that many friends. I was a pretty quiet kid. I had an older brother who was he was the man. Everybody loved him. He was great at sports. He was funny. He was outgoing. Even growing up, when I got to come out of my shell a little more and stuff, if my parents told somebody from our hometown, oh yeah, one of my kids are in New York pursuing acting and stand-up comedy and all that kind of stuff, there's no way they would say Mark. They would go, oh yeah, Ronnie's in New York. That's great. I could totally see him doing that. My brother was always way funnier than me and way more outgoing than me. And
What did your brother turn out to be?
so he has a lot of degrees. He became an air traffic controller. He became a graphic designer, a web designer, fine arts, and now he cuts hair.
He's probably happier cutting hair, right?
Yeah, the thing about my brother is dives into something. He's really good at it, and then he gets bored with it right away, and he moves to the next thing. So he was like this great web designer and a great graphic designer, and he just dropped it and moved to fine arts, and then he dropped that and he moved to went to air traffic control school. He got his license, got his pilot's license, and then just decided to go in a different route. He was a singer he was in a heavy metal band for a long time. He was a singer.
Do we know the name of is it a well-known heavy metal band?
No, they were just local to Northeast Ohio. They were called Dizzy Whore.
Oh
Even
God.
funny in their music.
So does your brother cut your hair?
Yeah, him and my mom's a barber as well. So whichever one I can get a hold of.
My mom came over after, the Holocaust, and she was a beautician in Germany. And they
Oh, wow.
asked her growing up in school if she wanted to learn a foreign language, and she picked French and moved to America. So when she came here, she knew no English and was cutting people's hair and doing it wrong. And so she was scared she was going to get fired. So she lined us kids up every night in front of mirrors. And I saw my hair getting cut backwards as a kid. And I cut my own hair now.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I've watched my hair get cut a million times, but never paid enough attention.
Oh my gosh. I was always that person. I was like, why am I paying someone else to do this? Let me just pay attention. But I had no fear of it, but I learned it later on.
That's well, and that's why I usually have a big mop. I won't get my hair cut until I see my mom or my brother.
That's so cool.
That's not out of loyalty, it's out of cheapness.
Cheap too. I'm very cheap. I save up my stuff for what I want to spend it on, and then I go hog wild.
Yeah, that's a way to do it.
So you grew up and you were quiet. You had a much more outgoing brother. That's exactly mirroring my childhood, except I also have a twin brother.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
when did you become funny?
So here's what's weird. So starting like let's say junior high school, it's probably around sixth grade. We moved to a different school, and it was kind of my chance to start over and be whatever. And we went, and I wasn't good at sports yet. I become good at sports later, but I wasn't good at it yet, and I still had this kind of a fear. Like I kind of got there's a little bit of like being I was never picked on because my brother was my protector. But I wasn't good like with the girls. I wasn't good with like making friends, but everybody loved my brother. So I kind of got his like spillover friends and spillover girlfriends. So like a girl would want to get close to my brother, so then she would buddy up to me. So I became everybody's friend. And I remember going to parties because my brother would always invite me everywhere with him. He was he was a really great brother. Like he always took care of me and made sure I had stuff to do. But I could make him and his friends laugh. But the kids in my grade did not think they didn't like me. I don't know if they didn't like me or they just, whatever, they didn't bond with me or whatever. And I could make my brother laugh, and that's all I cared about, is making him laugh. So like I wasn't the class clown. I was like the guy who wrote for an older class clown, because I would tell my brother things I thought were funny, then he would go and do it. And everybody was like, "That's the funniest thing I've ever seen." He was like, "Yeah, that's him." So I really lucked out in the family department with having a brother who we didn't have that sibling rivalry where we were, competitive. We were competitive, but it was healthy. And my parents supported everything they always supported me. They always, like, my mom always said, like, I don't care, you want a mohawk, you can have a mohawk, just be a good person. You want to
Oh,
dress crazy, just be a good person. And
I
so
love that.
there was always I felt supported. And it was then in high school, right when I started to get into high school, and I think it was because I ran with an older crowd, because my brother was 2 years older than me and he hung out with kids older than him. So I was in like a freshman maybe, and I'm hanging out with the seniors, and I could make them laugh. So they never kicked me out of the parties. They never made me leave because I was the young kid or whatever, because I could make them laugh. So that became my staple.
Wow.
Um, and my brother was awesome because he was so good at sports. And then it started to rub off on me, and I started to become good at sports, and I started to grow into my own. And it was just about the time he was leaving to go to college. All of a sudden, I was my own person, and I started to have my friends in my grade and the kids that were my age. And I got really good at football. I was all Northern Ohio, and I was always making people laugh, and even the
What
football coach.
position did you play in football? I love football, baseball, basketball, you name it.
I was a defensive end, and then I would also switch over to tackle, which is hysterical because back then I'm, 5'10", 5'9". I'm 5'10" on a good day, and I was like 180 pounds if I was soaking wet. It wasn't like I was but I had all the heart, and I also studied the game. Like I was really more of a technician. Like if I would have ended up going to college and playing, which was the plan, but I got hurt wrestling, I probably would have been more of the kid that they would have groomed to be a coach,
Wow.
because I was really into studying film. I was really into breaking down the offensive line and what was happening, so I could tell the kid who was behind me as a linebacker exactly what to do. Like I would just turn and go, just shoot this gap, you'll make the tackle. Like I just was so into the game. And then as an idiot, I wrestled. The coaches told me not to. Got hurt. They told me not to do it because I'd get hurt. I said, "There's no way I'm going to get hurt." But it's the last time I'll ever get to wrestle, because it was our senior year. So I was thinking there's no going back. So I figured I'd do it anyway, and I ended up getting hurt. And then that's what drove me to go to New York and become an actor.
Tell me
uh,
about that, going from Central Ohio, you said, to New York to pursue the arts. What was it in your life that made you decide that? Was it a girl?
and no, it was actually my football coach was
What?
like, I'm still in touch with them. I'm doing a benefit in February for the baseball team at my high school, because I stay in touch with these guys. I felt like when I was in high school, I could talk to the teachers like an adult. Like we got along, like it was like being like in one of those movies where it was like an adult pretending to be in high school. And so it was like, I would just talk to the teachers like they were my friends, and I got along with them. And when I got hurt, he knew that, I was going to be, I was depressed. I was very depressed. I didn't know what was going to happen. I kind of was like, yeah, I'll just finish out the year and see what happens. And he was like, you have to do something. Like, you can't just like, what are you going to do? Work at a car dealership washing cars? Because that's what I did in the summer for money. And he goes, what do you want to do? And I was like, I like acting. Because my brother and I used to make home videos, home
No way.
movies that that were like completely ridiculous. We used to run around our town with big fake mustaches and wigs, wearing my dad's old like plaid suits and like leisure suits, and we pretended we were cops from New York who was looking for someone. And we had these big elaborate fight scenes and chasing people in cars, and it was like, if we watched it now, I would be probably embarrassed, but back then it was like everybody got involved in these movies. Like, we would film it during school. We had one where it was these cardboard perverts came to life and started attacking people, and they were so ridiculous, but like everybody laughed about it. Like, teachers were laughing, but all the students thought it was funny. And I decided I wanted to go into acting, not knowing anything. I did do the school play, but I was like, I was a ham. I was just up there like doing impressions of the teachers, doing, like every time I would speak, I would be doing a different voice. I'd be doing a different character. It was like, it was really not good, but but I had the crowd laughing. So it was like, uh, so I auditioned, and I took it very seriously. I auditioned for like 10 schools, and I didn't get accepted to any of them except the best one that I did, that I thought I had no shot at. And that was the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. I thought there was no way. I literally only wanted to do the audition so I could get a trip to go to New York, because I was obsessed with New York. But I was obsessed with like 1970s New York, which was a whole nother thing, because I watched all these old 70s gritty New York Scorsese movies and stuff like that. And I was just like, that's where I gotta live. And I just wanted to go to New York. I didn't care if I got in the school because I knew I didn't have a shot.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting in.
And what was that like?
I I crap myself. I was like, I cannot believe this is real. Like, this isn't really happening. And like, when we were leaving and driving toward the Lincoln Tunnel after the audition, I remember looking around and going, man, that would be something to live here, but that'll never happen. I'm gonna probably end up, ending building a house in my parents' backyard and just staying there. 'Cause they own a big piece of property. So in my head, it was like, I'll coach football maybe, and we'll see what happens. And I got in the school, and I couldn't believe it. I'm going to go forward and then back.
Okay.
Uh, Graduation from the academy, I made it through the whole thing. They 2 to 5,000 people auditioned. They let 200 in. They cut it into about 80 for the second year. And then from that 80 to go into the third year, they have about 15 to 18. And I made it all the way through. And I went to the head of the school and I asked him, I said, how did I even get in? Like, what possibly could you have seen in me? I had no idea what I was doing. I was supposed to do 2 monologues. Both monologues are parts I would never, ever, ever, ever play. The one was like an 80-year-old man. The other one was like a father of 3 talking about how he lost his son. And I'm a 16-year-old, 17-year-old boy from rural Ohio. Like, I go, why? why did you possibly let me in? And he goes, I gave you some direction and you took it. Most people that have a lot of acting background, they they have bad habits and they think they know what they're doing. They don't want to listen. You had no habits because you had no idea what you were doing. So you were like a blank piece of clay. So
Wow.
I was like, wow, I got in because I had no experience. Like the other schools didn't let me in because I had no experience. This school let me in because they're like, we can actually teach you instead of,
Fabulous.
and so I I moved to New York and I realized how far behind I was because most of the kids who were going to the academy already graduated college. They're much older than me, which I wasn't nervous to be around older people, but I was intimidated because they were intellectuals. I was a meathead, I was a meathead jock who just thought it would be fun to be an actor. So I took it very serious and I used to put in, 10 to 15-hour days, just all acting and learning. And I would, get out of school when everybody else was going out and having a good time. I had to run home and catch up. I was reading everything I could get my hands on. I just wanted to catch up so I didn't stick out. And I was so scared at school that I would be caught as a fraud, because like I had no experience. It was me and like three other guys that were the young guys, and we used to joke around that we were the townies. We're the townies. Like if everybody finds out who we really are, we're gonna get exposed. It's over. And I mean, and I was horribly dyslexic, which is probably one of the reasons I was so shy as a little kid, because I didn't go to recess. I would go to the trailer and learn how to make my letters forwards instead of backwards. And I'd have to sit and read out loud, and I wasn't good at it. And this isn't the teacher's fault, but we didn't know much about dyslexia back then. So
Oh
it's just like, just get it right. And it's like, my brain doesn't work that way.
my
And
gosh.
so I felt like I was playing catch up. But there was also another thing. I fell in love with reading. I hated reading. And all of a sudden I realized reading plays made sense to me. So I was just taking in I would go to the drama bookstore and they had a rack of like plays that were like, old or not, sought after, and they were only like $1 or, $5. I would buy all of them and I would just read them, even if I didn't like the play. I'm like, I understand what's happening. This is great. And then we also, through the school, you got to go see Broadway shows, either cheap or free. I was going to the theater like 5 times a week, and it was just a complete culture shock. And I dove in and just fell in love with it. And when I got out of the academy, I needed to get a real job, because I worked at the school, to help pay, for my rent and stuff like that. But I worked at the school, but now I can't work at the school. So I ended up working at a comedy club. One of the
What?
girls at one of the girls at our school worked at a comedy club, and she was like, you should just come here, like, and work here. It's great. Watch comedy while you're doing whatever.
Which comedy
Oh,
club?
Stand Up New York. And
Love
so I go in and get hired as a waiter. After the first day, they basically told me, you are the worst waiter we've ever seen, but we don't want to fire you. You seem like you're really into it. And I said, yeah, I mean, I love everything about this place. It was the first week. It wasn't the first night. And I said, I love everything about this club. I love everything about it. But yeah, I'm not a good waiter because I'd sit and want to talk to all the people.
What
You know,
years was that?
that would have been 2002, probably 2002, right around in that area. And then I did every job in the club. I was the bus boy. I answered phones. I sat people. I'd hop behind the bar and help if it was busy. And they'd fire people, and I'd get their job. All of a sudden, I was a night manager, and then at one point, I became the booker for a few years, and that was like a real education in comedy because the owner had his lists, the A list, the B list, the C list, and these people are allowed to do this, these people are allowed to do that, these people aren't allowed to do anything. And I had to be the one who auditioned people, would tell the owner when it was somebody that you should look at. There was like all these responsibilities. And I started hanging out with comedians, and I found myself making comedians laugh when we'd go out for drinks. And it was like they all wanted me to do comedy, and I wanted to do it, but I was afraid to. Next thing I know, I decided, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I kind of cheated. I I I was writing for months, writing my material and planning it and doing whatever, but I didn't let anybody know. So then one night they did it like it was a dare, like, oh, come on, just go up, just go up. I was like, all right, fine, I'll try it. Meanwhile, I had it all planned out what I was going to do, but I made it seem like it was completely off the cuff.
How did that go?
So my first time on stage went really well. Like it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I chased that feeling for months and just bombed every time I went up. But the first time I went up, and it was probably because of my nervous energy, that the audience liked it and they laughed and they had fun. And I feel like then every time I went up, I didn't have the same energy. It was like whenever I was trying to do it for real, it wasn't going well. And I got a great education of doing comedy because I would go up when everybody was paying their checks every night. And then I started, I was booking a lot of voiceover work. So I was making money, and it allowed me to go out on the road and learn to do longer sets. So I would go out with these really great comics that were working a lot, and they would like guys like Greg Giraldo and these guys that would like come out and just do 10 minutes and then bring me on. I'm going to do an hour and a half. So, I just need somebody to get them to listen. So I learned how to be like a crowd wrangler, but I didn't care that the money was bad as an opening act because I had this voiceover money coming in. So it allowed me to do that. And then it was 2010, maybe. I hit a point where it was, I can't be a booker and a comic because it was just a conflict of interest. It made me uncomfortable whenever I was on the road. People would be asking me for work, and I'm like, I'm trying to go on stage and tell jokes. My phone never stopped ringing, comics wanting to get work, and I was like, I have to make a choice. Am I going this route or this route?
Yeah.
And so that was like a major moment of like, all right, I'm letting go of the safety rope. And it was not much longer from that when I hooked up with the armed forces people, and I never pursued trying to do comedy on television. It's very funny that now it's like all the rage, but I thought stand up is not a place to do it on television, on the internet. I don't want stand up shouldn't be on there. It should be on a live stage in front of a live audience, and it's only a moment that's shared between you and that crowd that night. You may tell those jokes the next night to another crowd, but in that moment and in that night, those jokes are just, this will never be experienced again in the exact same way. And I was a very purist about it, and I never pursued going that way. So when everybody started doing that, I started a kind of a TV, it would have been like a sitcom, but it was on the web. And this was like pre-YouTube, now everybody has a web series, and now, with streaming, it's like it's everywhere. But I was kind of doing this, like it was like the honeymooners, but a little dirty and blue, much younger. And we were doing it. I was, and my manager told me, who was also the owner of Stand Up New York, like, people aren't going to watch TV on the computer. Like, and it was like the worst advice I ever taken. Like, I never listened to anybody my whole life, and now I listen to this. I could have been like on the cusp of the cutting edge of doing these web series. But I think it happened for a reason, because then I took stand up more serious, and I took my acting very serious, and I got into directing and that kind of stuff. But I compartmentalized them. I never wanted to do one for the other. It's like I'm not trying to act to get better comedy, and I'm not doing comedy to get better acting. They're separate things going out into the world. And I believe every day that we do something creative and make a living, we're kind of cheating at life. Like, I feel like I haven't had a real job since I was like 19, when I worked at the school. So to me, it's like, man, I've cheated my entire 20s and 30s. I can't get over, like, I'm 40 years old, and my resume is literally just creative stuff. I haven't had to have a waiting job. I haven't had to have a day job, or go to an office, or punch a time card, since I worked at a school.
Can you take us through, you're an actor, a director, and a producer. Can you take us through, I've looked at your IMDb page, and can you tell us some of the funny scenarios that have happened, or your favorite moments in acting, producing, and directing, so we get a
Yeah.
glimpse?
So I got into directing because I couldn't stand seeing myself.
I should do it.
I love acting. I love every aspect of acting. And it was the same way I was with football. The practice and the looking at films was my favorite part. The game was the game. And it was literally, if you told me we're not going to play a game this week, I go, okay. Are we going to practice then on Friday? Because I like practice more than the game. And I feel the same way with acting. I love doing the homework. I have notebooks right next to my, I have a script, 3 notebooks, just filled with acting notes and stuff for the actors. I'm directing a play reading right now. And I just absolutely love all that stuff. So I started to get into directing because I realized I like doing the homework, but I don't care about going up and taking a bow. And then I got into producing because I feel like in our business, if you're not a sweetheart that the gods smile on, you got to create your own work. If you're not a sweetheart. So I really started to get into the production side, because I wanted to create work for myself and for my friends. And it's been a dream of mine just to make when I first met my wife, she said, "What is your goal in this business? Like, are you one of these people chasing fame or whatever?" I go, "No, if I can make movies with my friends, I won. Like, life's great. There's nothing better." It's what I did in high school, I made movies with my friends. So I started to get into it, and we did my first time on the production side. I did a lot of small little shorts, like that would go up. But this movie about 7 years ago, I worked on as a producer, called The Devil's Tree. and it's finally getting released because there were so many special effects in it, and it was such a low budget that we were working from. And that was when that movie was like, this is a personal thing to me. Was we left New York, we moved to we were living in Philadelphia, and we did this so I could work on this movie because I knew I wasn't going to have income for a few months. And as I was working on it, we were trying really hard to have a baby, my wife and I, and that was like the reason we wanted to leave New York, was to try to have this family. Um, we I was going to the thing. I was coming home at night, going to the set, coming home, and it was the last night of or last day of filming. And when we were on our lunch break, my wife called and said that she was pregnant.
Oh.
I literally was going to call and make a doctor's appointment to get checked that it wasn't me. Because she went to the doctor a bunch and did all that. I was like, all right, when the movie's over, I'll go get checked. It was the last day, and she got pregnant. I was like, all right, it wasn't me. I'm still good.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I really enjoy, and it's funny, I don't do a lot of comedies. We did a horror movie, two thrillers, and then I wrote and directed a TV pilot. And this was like I tried forever to get it made. I could never get it made, and then it finally happened. And it's called Radio Gods, and it's about morning DJs. And I got Paul Provenza and Rick Overton. Tom Cotter was in it. Tony V out of Boston. It was like everybody came together and just. I couldn't believe I had a vision, and then we made it. And we had a huge hiccup. It was like 2 nights before we were going to start shooting, and Gilbert Gottfried was supposed to play the guy who owned the car dealership that these two guys had as a sponsor. And Gilbert got sick, and he wasn't able. He basically called and said, "Yeah, I'm not gonna. I don't feel well. I'm not doing it." And we were in a panic because it was like we really were counting on him because he's such a great actor and funny, and that would help sell it. But Tony V out of Boston, who's the complete opposite type, completely opposite. Gilbert's tiny little Jewish man. We were going to put him in a giant cowboy hat and a gray suit, and he was going to be the, come on down, that guy. And we're like, we're not going to be able to replace him.
No.
Like, there's nobody you can get that does. So we called Tony V on a Hail Mary. He's a big Boston, loud Italian. And I was just like, would you do this? And he's like, yeah, I'll drive down tomorrow. I'm like, all right, we'll set you up. We'll get you a hotel. We'll do whatever. He's like, no, we'll just shoot it and I'll go home. I'm like, he goes, you save that money for the screen. Put that money toward putting something on the screen. And I honest to God think it was a SAG project. I honest to God think that none of the actors would have taken a check because they just believed in it too. They just said, yeah, they read the script. I'm in. Don't. Okay, we're gonna do a SAG, ultra low, but I don't care about any of that. I'll be there. I
Oh,
couldn't get
wonderful.
over how everybody came together, and it actually came out really funny. I was so happy with how it came out. We got in some comedy festivals. We got in some film festivals. Unfortunately, nobody bought it.
Ah,
It's not on television, but
is it still for sale and available?
oh yeah.
I want to watch it. How do I
can-
watch it?
I'll send you a link so you can watch it. I'll send you a link to it. we're still going to try to shop it around if we ever meet the right people. And I really feel what's crazy is we shot it a while ago, and I feel like it's getting more and more relevant because it's about, everybody right now is talking about the woke movement and people going after each other for what's said. These guys are shock jocks, and they're straight white males who are just trying to be shocking on the morning radio show, and they're basically being called out by this kid who's doing a documentary and is very woke, and he's calling them out on times have changed and whatever. So it's kind of on the perspective of both sides. And the whole point for me is I don't have like a mission statement that I'm trying to get somebody to see my point of view. I'm standing in the middle and I'm throwing pies in both directions. I'm about the funny. I'm not about the trying to, oh, I'm going to change your mind and I'm going to make you think the way I do. No, I hope you have a different perspective than me, and I hope we can make fun of it, and I hope we can make fun of the other way. And so to me, it's just about the fun.
That's awesome. I love that approach.
I don't think enough people do that. I think people are too tied up in their own thing. Like everybody's trying to be a bully and a victim. Everybody's trying to be they don't want to show any vulnerability or any sign of weakness, so they have to be extra outrageous and mad and extreme on everything. I was just talking because it was election day.
Mhm.
And I was talking to a couple friends, and they're on different sides of the aisle, and they were trying to get me to pick a side. And I said, and I go, dude, you're too extreme right and you're too extreme left. I'm in the extreme middle. I can't take it. I can't. I just want, I think we're all after the same goals. I don't know why you have to fight. Let's just go after the same goals. And
Yes.
and it's so easy to laugh at each other. Like if you can laugh at yourself, I feel like that's the most powerful thing you can do. I mean, I get it all the time on Facebook where somebody will come in and take a shot at me or whatever for being heavy. I could get cranky and, do whatever, but I'd rather that, oh, okay, you're going to make that joke. I'm going to double down. I'm going to make a fat joke about myself where you're going to feel bad you made a fat joke about me. And I feel like it's because I'll own it. I'm fine with it. I get it. I'm heavy. I've stepped on a scale. I've seen the numbers. You're not pointing out something I don't know. And I feel like people need to start taking that approach of like, hey, you're making fun of my thing. Well, I should make fun of it too, and I own it. It's fine. I know it's easier said than done,
It
especially if somebody hits.
is.
But I feel
Somebody
like
introduced me last week and said, yeah, she's in Vegas at the buffets chasing people away with her bad jokes. And I tried to pretend during my set that it didn't bother me. Afterwards, I was like, I did not appreciate that introduction.
See, now you're probably mad because they said bad jokes. I would have been mad because it was like, hey, is that a fat joke making fun of me at the buffet? I know I tell bad jokes, but the buffet line.
You got it all wrong. See, I need to get to that level where it doesn't bother me.
I mean, the thing that's so wonderful about art, but it's also scary, is what is good and what is bad, or what is, like the person would say something like that, but it's all opinion. There's no facts in art. It's all opinion. And I mean, to comedy even more than the other arts, I feel like, but like if I asked you who the greatest guitar player of all time is, who would you say?
Santana.
And that's an opinion, because what if somebody said BB King or Eddie Van Halen or Stevie Ray Vaughan? They're all great. Like, it
The
depends on
Winter
your mood.
Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great guitar players, and that's all we are. We're guitar players. We're learning notes and playing them. Some, you get attracted to some and not to others, and that's what's so cool about it. That's what I don't like any of these competition shows.
I
Like,
hate them. Some
yeah,
of them are so phony, bring 18 people to vote. Oh, leave me alone.
but it's like, who's funnier, Rodney Dangerfield or Stephen Wright? I don't know. Depends on my mood. Like, how
Yeah.
am I supposed to pick that?
And like, I get sick and tired of the egos. Like, he's not funny. You know what? Stop it. Everything can be funny. Everybody, there's room in this business for every kind of comedy.
Yep. And who are you to make that judgment? Like, who? And I don't care if the guy says, "Well, I'm the biggest agent in Los Angeles." So what? Maybe maybe that's just your opinion. Maybe other people think you're the biggest dick in the business. Oops, I don't know if I'm allowed to say
Yeah, you are.
that. But it's, I mean,
Speaking of going off on the rails with thoughts and words, so I have a joke. You know how you were talking about people and having opinions, and I have this joke that where I say, "Where are my conspiracy theorists?" And I could give a rip less about conspiracy. Leave me alone with this. I haven't got the brain for it. But I'll tell you what, if you once say deep dive, I'm all wet. That's all I
I love it. I love
know.
it.
That's all I need to hear. Say no more.
Oh man. The
Well, what would you like to say to people about your career that I didn't extract out of you that you haven't said yet?
I mean, I do a podcast with my buddy Richie Byrne, and we've argued several times with people who wanted to produce our show about having these, people that, in my opinion, are flashes in the pan, like big YouTube people or big whatever. I'm not interested in having them on. I'm not interested in having controversy with other people. I'm not interested in that. I believe we can make great art and stay positive. I think people ask, about working clean. And I never thought of myself as a clean act, but I've always tried to take the more challenging approach on a joke. And that's, I think, one of the hardest things to do is write a joke where you stay positive instead of going negative. It's easy to go negative on things to get a laugh. And I always try to stay positive, and I feel like I wish more artists did. Not out of my art's better than your art kind of attitude, but just out of we need to start having a little bit of acceptance of each other. We need to start looking at this. We're only on the globe so long. We might as well make the best of it. And I feel like we can get a lot more done if people will start being a little more positive, because I love dark. I love dark movies. I love dark, plays. I like that stuff, but that doesn't mean you have to be dark. I feel like we can all do better and be better to each other. And I wish more artists saw that. We're in the boat together. Life's hard enough.
Yes. It's true that everybody is, in a way, competing with each other, but there's so many opportunities, and more came about because of COVID, and So you don't like doing comedy on Zoom. Don't pick on the people that do it, and
Yeah,
so you're a purist and you only do it live, and that's fine. And,
yeah,
let's have some compassion for each other. My God.
exactly. Well, and the thing is it isn't a competition. It's not, because if you get hired at a gig over me, we're obviously very different. And so you probably connected better with the person who hired us. I'm not going to be mad at you for that. I can't be Linda. I can only be Mark. So I can do my stuff, and hopefully you like it or you don't. But if you go with Linda, I'm not going to get upset about it.
You
It's
shouldn't.
yeah, we should all be happy that we're getting work. Like I know I take the bitter bus once in a while. I see somebody get something that I wanted, and I'll get bitter, but it's not at them. It's about just me wishing I got it. Or
Yes.
what did I do wrong? And I don't know. I just feel like there's enough for everybody out there. I don't we all can work and we all can get stuff. So
And some
even
people hoard information and won't share information. Like, if you ask me who books, rooms in Vegas, why should I hoard that? If I share
yeah,
that, karma will come back to me. That's good.
exactly. I totally agree with you on that. I've
Cool.
always been somebody who's an open book when it comes to any kind of information I can give. And there are the people who really they try to take advantage of everything, but it's exactly what you said. Karma will take care of me. And hey, I tried to put the best effort out, even though they might not have had my best interests in mind.
Yes. I have one question to ask you that really has barely anything to do with you. In 1998, a little before you were with Stand Up New York, who was the big tall guy in the basement? Little bit rough and gruff and grouchy.
Big sideburns.
Yes,
That's Rich Brooks. He was
Rich.
my him and Nick Samato, who they don't get along, but they were the two guys who brought me in, and they were both so good to me.
Is
And
Rich Brooks still alive?
yes, he's in. Who works for Broadway Comedy Club.
Oh, he does. Awesome.
He's still booking and promoting and doing his thing. I believe he has two girls now.
The reason
Um,
I'm asking is in 98, I was a single mom living in Brooklyn and I had no money at all. And I knocked on the door and they told me to go down and meet him. And he let me go outside. He gave me a stack of tickets and I go out and I only had to turn in $2 for the tickets and I got to sell them for 5 or 10. And I had money to eat because of him.
oh, that's so sweet to hear. Yeah, he's
But
on Facebook. If you go on my Facebook page, you can find him.
okay. I'll get a
Um,
hold of him. I've always wanted to thank him because I had food to eat.
yeah, he's a very sweet man. Um, when he left Stand Up New York, um, it was funny. None of the people in the office got along, so they were all fighting, and I felt like a little kid, like mommy and daddy are fighting. I
Well,
was so young, and I just I looked up to all of them for different reasons.
well, you've opened up and shared a lot about your life, and we're at an hour, and I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. But before I do, I have to have you tell people where to follow you and what they can purchase that you've got out there that can help you.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, on all social medias, Mark Riccadonna, and that's Mark with a K. I'm the only one out there, so you'll find me. Um, I'm doing something I want to plug. November 14th, I'm in the New York Comedy Festival with our friend Christy Miller. We're doing our Naughty and Nice show. And also the 15th, I'm directing a play reading That's part of the New Blood playwrights, and that's on the Lower East Side. Christy Miller show, I forgot, it's at the Comic Strip Live on the Upper East Side of New York City, and then the Lower East Side is where the play thing is. That's at Theater for the New City, and that's 155 First Avenue, which is like by 10th Street. So I really wanted to plug those. But I can't thank you enough for having me on. I had a blast. I can't believe an hour went by.
I know, we had fun. So you can say anything you want to close out the show. It's yours to close out.
All right. Just be kind to each other. Be kind. Go out, have a laugh. Go see some art. Have your life change it. Have your life change through the art. I mean, there's nothing better than seeing a show, whether it's comedy, a play, a movie, that makes you think differently about life.
Wow. I love that. Thank you so much. You guys follow Mark Riccadonna, Riccadonna. Did I get it?
Nailed it.
Ah, awesome. Phew. Thank you so much. And tell Christy Miller I love her.
I definitely will.
Love you lots. Thank you so
Love
much,
you.
Mark.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.